Welcome to the Your Brother podcast. I'm your host, Dan Smith. Alongside me, as always, my brother from the same mother, Mike Smith.
Good to see you tonight, Dan.
This is Spinal Tap. Mike,
Both have the
was
Criterion.
that was literally on cue. We both held up the Criterion release. And now this is just our fourth in a series of episodes, the Your Brother Criterion reviews. Because this one just came out September 16th, 2025, which is, just we're recording this
A week ago.
Yeah. And, I've said on the podcast before, if you go back to any of those Criterion reviews we've already done, it probably was the only way that you were going to get me back into physical media at all. And now I put out a picture you saw on Instagram the other day of this all of a sudden growing collection of Criterion discs.
Yeah.
But this is Spinal Tap is a perfect example of what I love about
exhausting.
It's like, and I've watched almost everything on this thing.
I have watched it all.
Yeah. This is a great, for those listening, we're currently looking at the packaging. You get, of course, the three, these go to 11.
Right. And it's interesting because the 4K and Blu-ray are virtually identical except for the HDR on the 4K. And then there's a third disc.
Right.
With nothing but extras. Now, I held up the Blu-ray that there was an original Criterion release on DVD that's been out of print for years. So this Blu-ray was released and it has a bonus DVD with stuff. Believe it or not, Dan, there's more extras not in the box.
Right. And the funny thing you mentioned to me the other day when we were talking about this, now we should say this first came out in the theaters March 2nd, 1984. And the runtime on the film was 1 hour and 22 minutes. And then you, funnily enough, pointed out to me that one of the extras on the disc, which is one of the Blu-ray discs, is called The Cutting Room Floor. And it's all this extra stuff. What's the runtime of all that material, Mike?
It's longer than the film.
1 hour and 38 minutes longer than the film itself, which is funny. Now, before we get off that point, we talk about this a lot on the podcast, and recently we've been talking about it, which is runtime of movies. Because again, if you're trying to get people back into the theater, I don't think you're going to do it if they have to invest 2.5 hours minimum for that experience, right? Not to mention everything we've talked about with the cost and the concession. I would love to see the Spinal Tap consumer concession vessel and what that looks like. But Michael McKean, who of course stars as David St. Hubbins in This is Spinal Tap, was just on the Carvey Spade podcast, Fly on the Wall. And this was something he had to say.
I saw a good movie on the plane called Black Bag, and it's an hour and 33 minutes.
We're
done
Jesus.
Here, counselor. We can watch something else now, or we can take a nap.
I mean, how long have we said it?
The man himself says it. It's funny because we actually did a review of Black Bag. If you want to go back and watch that over another episode. So, Mike, directed by Rob Reiner, the main cast: Michael McKean, who you just saw in that clip, Christopher Guest, and Harry Shearer. Tell us a little bit about Harry Shearer, Mike, for those that may not know.
Well, Harry Shearer is infamously famous for all the voices he does on The Simpsons. And, he was a real musician as well. But from his Simpsons work, you'll know him as Principal Skinner.
Mr. Burns.
Mr. Burns, Smithers. He does a ton of voices. Him and Dan Castellaneta are the two lead voices, but he's the bass player and kind of soft-spoken in the film, which was interesting. I don't know if you had time to listen to any of the commentaries.
Yes.
But I listened to the commentary of them out of, not in character.
That's the same as me. And that was, we should say, that commentary was recorded in 1994.
Correct. A decade after.
Yeah.
And some of the comments are kind of interesting knowing that it just came out, the sequel, over the weekend. And we did a first look on this as Spinal Tap, and I questioned in our first look, would this cut it today? I feared, and I was right.
You mean Spinal Tap 2: The End Continues, the sequel,
Yeah,
right?
like,
Right.
would it do well? I said to you, I asked, are there people like me
Mhm.
that will go see this?
Right.
And I
Now,
got a resounding answer to that
did
question.
you watch it?
Not yet.
Okay.
You
Because
know
I think
why?
I
I
well,
had
I think we
I
should watch it and do a review on the film as
I
not to
definitely
be,
will.
because I don't wanna be persuaded by what as you've seen, what I've seen is like the Metascore is like 50 something on IMDb. It hasn't made any money, whatever.
Yeah, the money thing is the real shocking.
But yeah, this is our point about, there's so many this is 41 years later you're doing a sequel.
Correct.
So who cares other than the diehards like us that are talking about this, fans of the original film? And is that going to be enough to really sustain? But Rob Reiner was just on Bill Maher's podcast, Club Random, and he was talking about the theater experience. Said, "Yeah, I wanted to release it in theaters because I think that's the way you're supposed to experience films like this, especially comedies." So he understands the risk, but
Yeah.
of course he can afford to do it, right?
Well, that's the thing, they talk in the commentary how, and there's a great 2015 interview right up front. It's the first extra with Patton Oswalt.
You mean 2025?
2025. What did I say?
2050
2015.
might go back in a
That's
time
me being
machine.
off a decade. But yeah, that interview is really interesting because there's contradictory about how much it costs to make and how they made it. And in that
Mhm.
interview, Rob Reiner says that they gave him 60,000 and they were starting to write a screenplay, but then pivoted to make 20-minute. They figured, this is improvised. This isn't going to read well. So they made a 20-minute version of the film, which is one of the extras.
Yeah, it's called the Spinal Tap: The Final Tour, and this was in
Right.
1982. This is 2 years prior to the actual film release.
Yes. And they had been working on it since 1980.
Mhm.
And the backstories are really incredible. But to go back to my point of how it was made, they got, according to Rob Reiner, 60,000 from Embassy Pictures, which is no longer in business. He coughed up 25,000 because Rob Reiner, if you don't know who he is, if you know the show All in the Family, you probably don't know either. But there's Rob Reiner with Christopher Guest. Rob Reiner played a character called Michael Stivic, Meathead, on All
Meat
in the Family.
Meathead, yeah.
And that was his, claim to fame until he became an excellent director. He's got some really good films under his belt.
Mhm.
But he coughed up 25,000 because he had money from All in the Family. And then each one of the guys, the three leads,
5
gave
grand.
5 each. So 90,000, they cut that 2 hour and nobody wanted it.
Yeah, and it's the 20-minute short is really funny, and you can see the nice outline of all the elements that end up in the final film, but it's
Right.
and I think it probably goes to what has been the funny thing about this film from the inception is that people like, what is this? Like, why? They just didn't get it.
Well, any heavy, like they knew these guys know a lot of rock bands and heavy metal people. And they were like, why are you making fun of us? Like they all thought it was about them. They all thought it
Yes.
was a real group.
Hmm.
They didn't get the joke,
Right.
which it starts out with uh Martin, is it Marty
Marty
DeBurgi?
DeBurgi. Yeah.
Okay, and it's a throwback to a bunch of Martin Scorsese who did The Last Waltz, which I know you like.
Great rockumentary.
It's a
Yep.
great rockumentary, and but the mishmash of names, it's not, he's not playing Scorsese, they're not making fun of Last Waltz. They're not making
Right.
fun of anyone.
Right.
But everybody assumed this was a real band, and they really didn't get the joke, but the movie starts with Rob Reiner walking past all this film equipment that wouldn't be used on 100 films, and that gag should have given it away, but it
Right.
didn't.
It didn't. It didn't. Yeah. It's I mean, I don't even know where you start with the absurdity of this film and how funny it is. I mean, you've got to watch it multiple times because you're going to see a number of things that you didn't catch. And then with this Criterion release,
It's
I mean,
exhausting.
as you said, I've only gotten through that one commentary. There's 3 commentaries on it.
Yes. Yes.
It's a great interview with Patton Oswalt that you mentioned. There's, as you mentioned, a 4K, you get 2 Blu-ray discs, a 28-page booklet, which you were holding up, Mike.
Yeah.
Um, and then the cutting room floor, which we mentioned, which the runtime of all that footage is longer than the film itself. It's crazy. Now,
And a lot of
how
that stuff, Dan, there's
Mm,
some gems in there
there's
that
some good stuff.
absolutely should have made the final cut. Now, I don't know if you knew this in your
Yeah.
research. There's a 4 hour and 45-minute cut
Yes.
of the film you can buy online.
Which it's interesting because when you see a lot of that cutting room floor footage, you see the elapsed time counter on the camera. It's like
Right.
4 hours plus. So I imagine that's the raw go of
I
all
would
of
have
that
to
stuff.
think so, yeah.
You know what I mean? It couldn't have been a straight run time of the film. One thing I wanted to show, I think I have hold on, I think I have an
While you're
image of this.
pulling that up, I don't know if you
Yeah,
noticed when you
there
put
it
the
is.
disc in,
Hmm.
the beginning of the film comes up over the menu. It's
Yes,
the
which is
menu where you
nice.
select.
Yeah,
And it's very interesting because it's not in 4K. It's kind of
right,
all grainy and whatnot, and you're like, "Oh my god, they did a terrible job on the 4K," until
right.
you hit play on the movie and it's all cleaned up.
This was funny. I don't think this specific part of this sequence made it into the actual film, but this is a shot of a scene in the film where they're looking at their new album that just came out, and there was all this controversy about the packaging of the
Right.
album, right?
Smell
S-
a glove.
Smell of single, which was very sexist cover that they had, which you never see.
No.
And again, that's the genius that you don't see the
Right.
smell the glove, imagery. But what it ends up being is a nice nod to the Beatles here. Instead of the white album, you get the black
The Black
album.
Album,
It's
basically.
completely black. There's nothing on it. But the funny thing is, there's a scene from the cutting room floor where this one kid comes into a record shop and there's nobody coming in. They've got
Right.
records all around them and there's nobody coming in. But a couple of kids come in and this one kid comes in and asks, "Will you sign my album?" Of course, David St. Hubbins is signing it with a black Sharpie, so you can't see. And the kid's like,
Right.
"Did you sign this?" Ah,
And,
it's so
that
absurd.
gets cut out. You see them the gag in the way it plays out is nobody shows up,
Yeah,
and they're ticked off at the
right.
promoter for nobody showing up. But if they added not only that kid, but the other kid that had a non-Spinal Tap album, it was all trains on it. And they're like, "This isn't our album." And he's like, "Yeah, I know, but I play it at the same time I play yours, and I want you to sign the train album." Oh, those
That's
2 bits
that's
easily could
the
have been in
yeah.
there.
And something you asked me, I didn't want to give it away, but you asked me before we came on air. I was playing some music and you were like, "Oh, what is that?" I said, "Oh, just some tunes." And every time I see and I watch this sequence, it just makes me crack up, which is when they had these other iterations of the band early on, which is something you see, right? A metal band who started out as like a pop duo or something.
Yeah, yeah.
And this was a group they apparently were in called the Thamesmen.
The Thamesmen.
And it's a horrible image. I couldn't find a good still of it, but there's a little clip in the film, this archival footage of them in the Thames, and it's the song "Give Me Some Money," and it's
Right.
it's so stupid and so goofy, but it's very Beatlesque at the same time. This looks like something right out of Ed Sullivan.
Yeah, and if you look at the poster over my shoulder, it's
There
kinda
you
got some
go.
similarities there,
It's
but
perfect, yeah.
another bit
Wait,
that's
but
cut
was
out
this
go ahead.
is that Harry Shearer for real?
No.
Okay, who is that?
They say who it is in the commentary, I forget. I don't think it's
Okay,
anybody that went on to great
because
fame.
I'm like, it couldn't be because he's got this huge beard throughout the film.
Right.
So when I saw this, I'm like, that's not him, right? It is Ed Begley Jr. on drums, by the way.
Ed Begley Jr. on drums, and it's
So
Michael
funny.
McKean and Christopher Guest, but this is
Yes,
prior to
that's true. So
Derek
he
Smalls
he
making the
he
band.
joins later. Okay, there you
He
go.
joins later.
Yeah.
The other thing about that, there's a great, bit that Michael McKean talks about. One of the extras, and it gets exhausting because there's a lot of redundancies,
Well, in a
but
good way, I thought.
yeah, there's one extra where they go through each song in character and they kinda
Mm,
describe. Well, that one from the Thamesmen's called "Give Me Some Money." That's the
yeah.
song they're playing.
You know what I want.
Do, 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 do.
You know what I need.
And the killer is Michael McKean says in character, "Well, we meant it literally. We
Mhm.
wanted them to throw us money.
Yeah, we had everything else. We had the fame, we had the talent. We needed some
We
money.
needed
We wanted
money."
some
And then they
money.
said,
Right.
"Oh, it started to hurt because they would throw pennies and they would stick to us, so we had to change."
Well, and the thing about that piece you're talking about is another thing we should point out about the film, especially for anybody who hasn't seen it, is the ad-libbing. There's no script.
Right.
It's kind of like, a lot of people would credit Curb Your Enthusiasm with this, but this was way, way ahead of that, and like 20 years ahead of that. And this was where you would just have an outline, kind of a basic outline of the setup for the scene or what have you, and then they would just
Right.
riff. These guys would just riff,
Right. A
including
lot.
Drescher, the well, I guess now
A
former
party host.
head of SAG-AFTRA. Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
and the interesting thing about that is before they even got to it, they each individually wrote their background and they
Hmm.
shared it with each other so that when they were asked questions, which they had no idea what Rob Reiner was gonna ask them,
Hmm.
but they had done so much depth in, background of their characters that sometimes they'd speak at the same time and answer the same. You would swear it's scripted.
Well, yeah, and there's several times in the film where you see them breaking, or at least
Yes.
starting to break, which is really funny. And one of them we gotta talk about, which is
I hope you
uh,
got the one I'm thinking. No,
Fred Willard.
Fred Willard is great.
Fred Willard is, and I would have showed a clip of this, but this is a still from a scene with Fred Willard, who was a genius comedian. It would end up in a lot of the. I think he was in a lot of those films that Christopher Guest has done, right? Like
Yeah,
Best in
A
Show,
Mighty
A
Wind.
Mighty Wind, etc.
Right.
But this sequence, if you watch it in the film, you see Christopher Guest in the background behind Derek Smalls here, Harry Shearer. And every now and then when Willard would say something, you could see Christopher Guest just duck behind Derek Smalls
Correct.
because he was starting to laugh. It was so funny.
There was a sequence with Howard Hessman, the late Howard,
Oh, that
both of
was
these
great.
guys not with us anymore, and they worked
Yeah,
together, Fred Willard and
that's
Howard
right.
Hessman. And Hessman was a last minute call in because somebody
Yeah.
in the industry was supposed, but in his
Well,
sequence, you
no, no,
see
no. Hold on a
Christopher
second.
Guest. Oh, go ahead.
Hold on. That point that you make, the reason is, as you learn in the commentary, I think,
Mhm.
is the actor uh, who plays a character in that same sequence you're describing called Duke Fame.
Right.
That actor was so nervous he couldn't speak. He
Oh,
couldn't
that's
deliver
right,
lines.
that's right,
So
yes.
he's in the scene, and you can kind of see how nervous the guy was, even without saying anything, if you watch it closely.
But you do catch Christopher Guest ducking behind somebody because he's cracking up. I mean,
Yeah, and here's another brilliant sequence where you cut to Not so we should say Michael McKean plays David St. Hubbins. The names are great. Christopher Guest, Nigel Tufnell, or as he says to Bruno Kirby, you can call me Mr. Tufnell, and that makes Kirby start to break in that
Yeah.
sequence that he's in. And then Harry Shearer is Derek Smalls. I do want to mention real quick June Chadwick, who plays Janine Pettibone.
She's like the Yoko Ono of the group.
Kind of the Yoko Ono of the group, exactly. She's fantastic in this role as well. I think there was another actress that played her in the short film that you talked about, but
Yes.
there's this sequence where you cut to Nigel is on piano and there's Marty DeBurgi at the piano. He's doing one of the interviews
Right.
and he's playing this really beautiful melody on the piano. And he's, Nigel's talking about, yeah, it's a little bit of
Like
a Bach
Mozart.
piece, little bit of a Mozart piece. It's a mock piece, and it's beautiful. He's playing this melody because, of course, they're all real musicians, right? And he's
Right.
classically trained.
Right.
And then cut to Marty, and he says, "Oh, what's the name of that piece?" And he says, "Oh, this one here is called Lick My Love Pump," and it cuts immediately.
Yeah, because he had to laugh when that
He
came
had
out.
to break at that. Oh my god! I
Did
don't
you
know how
at
they.
any point pull up the chapters
Well,
in what they're listed as?
No, I didn't. Only in the extras where they did that, where you saw like a handwritten title and
Yeah.
things like that. No.
Ch- when you put the film in,
Yeah.
just click on chapters,
The
because
chapter
when you
names.
look at the name of every chapter, it's just
Yeah.
gag after gag after gag.
And that's the thing. It's just endless gags. Mike, this was funny. I didn't hear anybody talk about this in the commentary or the interview or anything, but there's a song called Big Bottom that is one of the most
Right.
covered Spinal Tap songs of all
Garth
time.
Brooks.
Yeah. And in the sequence in the film, they're all playing bass guitar,
Yes.
which just makes me laugh my ass
Yes.
off. Because it's like David St. Hubbins, lead guitar, Nigel Tufnell, lead guitar. Yeah, but they're all playing bass guitar, which is really funny.
And I don't know if it was in the outtakes, but at one point they bring in guest bassists. They have like 9 bassists playing
Yeah.
the song.
Yeah. What about this, Mike? Talk about this sequence here.
Yeah, this is famous Stonehenge. And you see, now you can't tell from this picture.
Well, this is a great shot by Rob Reiner.
Yeah, because it looks like it's a big model of Stonehenge, but it's literally 18 inches tall, because they're in a, and it's really interesting because the same year Black Sabbath did a
Yeah.
Stonehenge kind of montage
Mhm.
song,
Mhm.
and they swear that these guys stole it from them, even though they had recorded it prior to Black Sabbath.
Mhm.
But anyway, they're in a coffee shop and they're talking about what's new and what's the next thing. There's Angelica Houston
Right.
before anyone knew who she
18-inch
was,
Stonehenge.
with the 18-inch, because Nigel draws it on a napkin, and
Mhm.
instead he meant to write 18 feet, but he writes
Right.
18 inches. And when Ian, who's arguing with Angelica Houston, is saying, you can't trust what this guy says. He's an idiot, basically.
Yeah.
You have to use common sense.
She's like, but that's what he wrote on the napkin. F the napkin. And then,
Yeah.
of course, they make a joke about that should be the name of the film, F the napkin. Some of the you mentioned the chapter names. Another name that I love, a character named Sir Dennis Eatonhog.
Yeah.
who
Which is
runs the
based after
Hogwoods
Michael.
Hogwood School for Pale Young Boys.
He's the only one that he was so nervous and he felt like he wasn't up to the other guys, so they wrote his dialogue.
Wasn't he an actual executive? I believe that guy. He was like the head
Maybe.
of Polymer Records, I think, or something.
He was
I
at that
believe.
party. Whether or not he was that character, it probably was.
Now, you may not realize this, but it's kind of interesting, Mike, that there is a. Okay, so before I get it, so here's another sequence, still from the film, where Derek Smalls, the bass guitarist, is going through airport security at LAX, and he gets stopped because the machine keeps going off, the metal detector
Beeping.
beeping. Right. And sir, do you have anything, any metal objects in it? Yep. And he pulls out all these coins and all this stuff, and he goes back, comes through, same thing, does it like 3 times. And then the security person goes with the wand,
Right.
up and down until she gets to his crotch, and then it just starts going crazy. And of course, he's got, this huge cucumber wrapped in tinfoil down his pants. But the funny thing about this sequence, Mike, you wouldn't think that I could make a Halloween Fest connection in this episode of This is Spinal Tap, which, as we're recording this, Oh Brother Halloween Fest is right around the corner.
Right.
But this actress here, Gloria Gifford,
Mhm.
who plays in this sequence, was also Mrs. Alves in
Oh,
Halloween
wow.
2, Mike.
Wow.
Deep cut right
It's
there.
funny because as the credits are rolling, Michael McKean points out Gloria Gifford,
Yeah.
somebody not credited because she didn't make the film, but in fact, I don't think she had any lines, but Rebecca De Mornay
Oh, that's right.
is
Yes.
in the hot tub, which is
That's yeah.
kind of an ongoing gag in and of itself that they're
Uh,
always in this hot tub.
uh-huh. Well, talk about the other gag with the lip sores, Mike.
Yeah, there was a long drawn out joke that's really quite funny, but it took so long to play out where they they're watching this band, a metal
Mhm.
band, and there's a lead singer, female in spandex, and they're all attracted to her. And they get uh Ian over and they say, "Hey, they should be our opening act, you know?" Cut to the hot tub and she's with Michael McKean. Cut away, cut back, she's with Harry. Cut back. And each time one of them has a herpes sore on their lip till the point where they're all and then they all have it and they all say to Ian, I think we should dump them as the opening band. Cut to the drummer who doesn't have a herpes sore is like, no, I think they're good. I think we should keep them
Yeah,
because
it,
he's
it
the
was
only one.
yeah, Dose was the name of the band, and
Dose.
the singer was the actual singer of the Runaways,
Okay.
which was a big band. I think Alita Ford was in that band too, way back when. Yeah, a lot of cameos. You mentioned Angelica Houston, and as you point out, some that are in the extras and didn't even make the film,
Right.
which is pretty.
Or their storyline, like um the mime, who's the main mime? Billy Crystal has a huge
Yes.
backstory,
Hmm.
but it doesn't play out in the film. You only see him, basically briefly where he's talking to Dana Carvey, who in the film doesn't have any lines. And
Yeah,
of course, the quote, "Mime is money."
that was
Let's move it
brilliant.
on. Yeah,
Yeah,
there they are.
there's
And
Dana
Dana
Carvey
Carvey on the left, Billy
and
Crystal
Billy.
on the right. But Billy Crystal's this bitter, you know,
Very
kind of
bitter.
wannabe, but
And
winds
and
up
Carvey was originally going to be one of the drummers. I think he had come in and was going to audition for that. I think, and then
oh, okay.
they I forget what the story was, but he ends up. And I think Michael McKean talks about it on Carvey's podcast, "Fly on the Wall," which I played a clip from at the start of the episode. So,
Yeah, and Rob Reiner, the director, is
mhm.
also a museum play did I say
Musician,
museum?
he was
Yeah,
a museum player. Yeah, in
he's
his
a
off time, he
musician.
visits the
He
museums.
he's a quite a good keyboard player.
Hmm.
And
That I didn't know.
yeah, he could have in fact, they talked about him being the 4th member of the band,
Hmm.
but and he wasn't originally slated to direct it. There was a female that was gonna direct it that dropped out, and Rob Reiner jumped
Mm.
in. But, yeah, he could have done double duty, which I'm sure would have been even more funny.
We haven't talked about the fact that these are all American-born actors, and yet
Yeah,
you would never be able to tell. Now, Christopher Guest is the only one that has some legit British lineage in his
right.
family. Like a member of the House of Commons or something crazy like
Right.
that in his lineage. Mike, he's also on the board of trustees, or was, at Berkeley in Boston, the School of
Oh,
Music there.
interesting.
And he, again, they're all trained musicians, but yeah, the accents are just crazy good. So good
Yes.
throughout. Derek Smalls, Harry Shearer is a little bit more understated. It's funny because there's another, I forget the song that's playing over this. I don't know if it's one of the sequences on the bus or something, but you hear Harry Shearer doing a voiceover of a commercial in the
Right.
background, and all you think about is The Simpsons. When you hear that voice, it
Yeah.
sounds like he's doing, some character from The Simpsons. It's pretty
There's
wild. Now,
multiple times in the film where there's stuff going on in the background, and it's them voicing
right,
it.
that's
It's
right.
not
Like,
just that.
somebody at the airport terminal in the background, on the PA system or something like that. Now, Harry Shearer, Christopher Guest, and Billy Crystal, who we just talked about, all, I believe, were part of that like 1 year
Correct.
Saturday Night Live season where they were brought in, I think, basically to try to salvage
And they
things at
did.
that
They
time. And they did.
saved
Yeah.
SNL, and I think the story goes they didn't get paid.
But how known was Harry Shearer as well, and also Christopher Guest at that time? I think Michael McKean, of course, I knew Michael McKean as Lenny from Lenny and Squiggy from Laverne and Shirley. And of course, Nigel Tufnell, the character, appears on an album with Lenny and the Squigtones.
Correct.
You have that in your collection, Mike?
No, I don't, and that comes from Laverne and Shirley, Lenny and Squiggy. That's how Michael McKean kinda shot to fame, but he was also an SNL alum.
Would you ever in a billion years, when you were watching Spinal Tap as a young adult, ever think that Michael McKean would evolve to be one of the greatest television dramatic actors of our time?
No,
It's
and I even doubted him on SNL. I didn't think he was real versatile, and
Mhm,
you see his skills in this
mhm,
easily. But,
yeah,
Saturday Night Live came on in what, 75 or 76.
mhm.
But Michael McKean wasn't on there till, 80 sometime.
It was like 80, yeah, 84 maybe?
And I don't know
Well,
if
it
he
was
was
right around this
ever
time, or 83, I don't know.
was he ever an actual cast member or just a featured player?
I don't
Yeah,
probably a
see, I'm
future
not
player if I had to
sure.
guess, but I'm not sure, yeah. Uh, we should mention Tony Hendra, who plays their manager, Ian Faith. He was great in throughout the film. He passed away, I think, back in 2001 or something at some
And there's a
point, but
dark story about him.
about
Uh,
Tony?
yeah, wanting to attempt he talked about attempting suicide the night before filming,
Oh, wow.
and
I
he
didn't know
credits
that.
Spinal Tap with basically saving his life.
Wow, he was brilliant in the film, so funny,
And
so
he's
funny.
playing like the Brian Epstein of the Beatles part.
And he has to play it straight throughout the whole deal because, he's at their beck and call for everything, and he's dealing with all of the promotion and trying to get, but with the three of them, they have the luxury of, you see at times, right, where the character's laughing, but it's really the actor laughing, but because of the
Right.
nature of the scene, they can kind of get away with it, which is kind
Correct.
of kind of funny. But his character can't. Like, which I think, more respect to Tony Hendra, right? Because he has to stay deadpan the whole time in the midst of all
Right.
this absurdity, which is quite genius, really.
Dan, talk about what a writer is, because I
Oh
found
yeah.
that story in the extra with Patton Oswalt
Yeah.
fascinating.
About Van Halen. Yeah,
Yes.
so one of the extras, Patton Oswalt, who's a well-known comedian, is super nerd, admitted super nerd, and was in one of my favorite comedies of all time, The King of Queens, played Spence Ocean. He interviews Rob Reiner, and they talk, they're going back and forth, and they're talking about a lot of the bands that this isn't, loosely kind of based on some of the stories that were legendary at that point with Led
Right.
Zeppelin and others. and all the bands and actors, but primarily it's out of the rock world that they have
Well,
these
Michael
riders.
McKean points out that actors are just as
Yeah,
prevalent with these
but
riders.
you hear about it more, I think, from
You do.
musicians, that world, and they're basically demands that the musicians have of things that they want prepared for them before they even get into their dressing room. And so in this story that they talk about, it was Van Halen, right?
Van Halen.
Now this was it was Rob Reiner had never heard the story and he was
Correct.
blown away by it. It's
Correct.
fascinating, which is that apparently, as the story goes, on the rider, they requested all brown M&Ms to be removed from the M&Ms that they would request in their dressing room,
Right.
but it was because setup, the stage setup was so complex and there was so many different things that had to be tended to. They put it like way down on the bottom of the rider, so they knew if they showed up in the dressing room and the brown M&Ms was still there, they were like, "Okay, these clowns didn't read the rider, and this stage might collapse."
Right. So, Patton Oswalt points out it's not about the brown M&Ms. That's what's famous. That,
Yes.
oh, Elvis, you had to give him only cherry whatever.
Mhm.
It's not about, but they used it in a way to expose that they didn't read the rider, so it was a potential danger.
Yeah, I
I
don't know
found that
how.
story fascinating.
Yeah, I don't know that it was used in that, for that purpose in the majority of cases. I think it's just the ego at play there, but that was a fascinating story for sure. Again, Mike, I can't say enough about the beauty of this packaging here.
Yeah.
I mean, just the feel of this thing is
And for
amazing.
people
Now,
who own Citizen Kane, it's very similar.
yeah, and I haven't even gone through the whole. I had intended to read all the booklet, but you can see you get some great photos in
Yep.
here and a huge write up. Have you read through this? Probably
I
not.
did not, no.
Yeah, and we should say Spinal Tap is credited, has the distinction of being one of England's loudest bands. I like that
Yeah.
that was their claim to fame,
Yeah.
but just a wonderful packaging by Criterion here, Mike. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's a great, I mean, there's so much content. You can spend a week with
Mm,
this box,
so good.
and let it, because it's really, it gets exhausting watching it all in one sitting,
Yeah, I had to
which
break it
I
up on the.
even did it over 2 nights, and it was still, I
I
was like,
did too.
"Wow."
I did too. What would you say about, again, we talked a little bit about Rob Reiner, and you were mentioning his stint on All in the Family, which shot him to superstardom. And I think in large part because as he talks about in that Patton Oswalt interview and pretty much every junket interview he's been on for the sequel, is at that time, All in the Family, you're talking in the 70s, in the height of the
Correct.
70s, there were three primary channels, right? It was like
Right.
ABC, CBS, NBC, right?
Correct.
And it was literally must-see TV, where
Yep.
if you didn't tune in on Friday night or whatever it was to see All in the
Saturday
Family,
nights. Yep.
Saturday night, you didn't see it.
Yep.
You didn't see it. And
And there were no reruns.
no, and it was the millions, what, 40 million people or no, something like that. Some crazy number of
Yeah.
people would be tuning in around the country, and it was a communal experience. And then as he mentioned, you have that water cooler experience where the next day at work everybody's talking about, "Oh, did you see All in the Family last night?" But that just doesn't really exist anymore. It doesn't exist
No.
anymore.
And think about it, All in the Family would get pulled off the air if it was put on now, because it was so shockingly, the main character played by Carol O'Connor, the
Wow.
accent
The
the
accent hits
accents
you.
came flying out.
Accent got you, yeah.
But, one of the nicest guys, he has to play this extreme racist.
Mhm.
And back then, you just didn't show this kind of stuff, and it was thought about, but you didn't hear it. And All
Mhm.
in the Family was shocking week after week. Norman Lear, the genius behind that and a bunch of other well-known sitcoms.
Yeah, absolutely. But I was bringing that up to talk a little bit about, influences since Spinal Tap. I mean, of course, the films that Christopher Guest would go on to helm many of, we mentioned A Mighty Wind and Best in Show, which I would encourage anybody to see that. But it also made me think about things like Curb, right? And like Borat, which, is different, but I gotta believe that Sacha Baron Cohen is influenced by this kind of thing, although again, this is a complete mockumentary and where
Right.
he was literally like realistically goofing on people and putting himself into really uncomfortable
Danger
situations.
sometimes.
Right.
Yeah.
But Get Back, Mike, I was thinking about, we did an episode on that Beatles
Yes.
documentary. And you think about that when you're watching this, some of the
Oh, you can't
infighting and
help it.
things.
And you know what? I've got this
Oh,
Criterion.
that's a coincidence.
This is the Rock Box,
Oh,
and
yeah.
it's got Gimme Shelter,
Okay.
A Hard Day's Night, Monterey
Oh,
Pop, which I know you've seen,
yeah.
and the Who Quadrophenia,
Nice.
all in one box. Now it's out of print, so
Yeah.
you'll have to go to eBay if you want to get it, but it's available, reasonably priced. They also, you can buy them individually. Well, you watch any of those, you watch Don't Look Back, you watch The Last Waltz, you see something
Hmm.
that you identify with, and all these guys were in bands.
Yeah.
So they identified with it. Like there's a sequence that we haven't talked about, shockingly, which them going to the stage, let's rock and roll, getting all pumped.
Hello,
And they,
Cleveland.
right, they keep going and getting into these dead ends. And,
Yes.
and then they meet this guy along the way, and he's like, go down to the right, to the left, and they go, and next thing you know, he's there again. And
Yes.
he's like, you took a wrong turn or something.
You're just in a loop in this basement. It's very
And that's
funny.
Michael McKean talks about how Tommy John? No. Who's the Styx guitar player?
Oh, Tommy Shaw.
Tommy Shaw. He said he was watching Tommy Shaw one time on some, channel, and that happened to him. Now it's
Mm.
also right out of Bob Dylan's Don't Look Back.
Hmm.
So a lot of this is kind of paying homage. Now, I think what you're getting at too is Get Back is more, documentary.
Yeah.
And I think it surpassed the poster I have, Stop Making Sense,
Hmm.
as the best concert film. Although it's more than just a concert film. Stop Making Sense is just a straight out concert film.
True. Right. Right.
Now, when
Where?
I watched this
Mhm.
after, it's been probably a decade
Mhm.
since I've seen it, and I've been waiting for this 4K for like a month. I see it almost like a documentary now. Like
Mhm.
some of the gags don't work as well as they did originally. Now, when I pull up the chapters, I instantly chuckle.
Okay.
But I'm it's
What is something that falls flat for you today? I'm surprised to hear you say
just
that after the conversation now.
I know, I know. I thought this would surprise you too, because I'm wondering. I wondered aloud when we did the first look on Spinal Tap 2, and I didn't go to
Mm.
see it because I didn't want it flooding my head and
Mhm.
confusing me with all this content.
Right.
But some of the jokes, it's kind of like when you do stand-up comedy and you watch another performer, you don't laugh at their jokes. You kind of nod like, that's very clever. That's really
Mhm.
funny. But there's something in your brain that gets shut off. And that's what
Mm.
happened to me. I was like, that's a funny bit.
Yeah.
But I wasn't laughing out loud.
Well, and maybe some of that, Mike, is the sadness over the fact that we don't get this kind of writing. Again, we keep talking about the creatives and the storytelling and in this case the genius comedy and the
Yeah.
very understated comedy that again was a part of the reason it was so um uh confusing for folks when it came out. They were like, what are you doing a documentary on a band no one's ever heard of before? What
And
is
think
this?
about it. They've done so many real concerts on that Blu-ray
Yeah.
I showed you.
Mm-hmm.
There's a real performance at Live Earth. Do you
Mm-hmm.
remember that?
Mm-hmm.
2008, I think, was Al Gore, the vice president, behind it.
Right. Right.
They
Right.
played at a lot of these festivals. In fact, you find out in the commentary that they have to do something every couple of years as Spinal Tap to maintain the license.
Right.
So I think the sequel they're doing to maintain the license.
Maybe
And,
so. I
you know,
wondered if that was still in effect. Yeah, because I remember hearing that on the commentary
right.
that they had to do that, which is pretty
My guess is
interesting.
it is because they were on The Simpsons
Yeah.
as Spinal Tap, which was
Mhm.
funny for Harry Shearer.
Mhm.
But, you know, you really, it's an underappreciated film. Now, Entertainment Weekly has it as the number one top cult film of all time.
Wow. That's high
That's
praise.
pretty high
Yeah.
praise.
I don't know if you noticed, you mentioned Embassy Pictures behind this film, but did you notice at the very end of this when the credit comes up, the MGM credit, and at the very bottom
Yeah.
now, an Amazon company? It's weird.
Wow.
Very bizarre. Very
And
bizarre.
one last thing I'll say, because we're heading into Halloween Fest, is Christopher Guest,
Mhm.
famously married to
Jamie Lee
Amy Lee
Curtis,
Curtis.
the greatest scream queen of all time. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, well, that's a good way to wrap it up, I think, is right on that note. But listen, folks, so here's another Oh Brother Criterion collection review. This is Spinal Tap 1984. We're going way back. Got to go back 41 years, Mike, for this one. And it was well worth the wait. And again, listen, take it from somebody who is not a physical media collector anymore. This is absolutely worth the price of admission. It's beautiful packaging. The extras, as Mike said, are endless. I haven't even gotten through them all yet,
Yeah. They outdid
and
themselves with this one.
yeah, but it's just beautiful. The coloring and everything, just the whole style of it is fantastic. So we'll add that into the Criterion collection for Oh Brother and add this into my Criterion collection, which continues to expand. I think I'm up to maybe 9 or something like that, but I
And
gotta.
that's not bad
It's
considering
okay.
there's only about 100 4K editions.
That's true. That's true. I could have really narrowed it down. Yeah, and just gone 4K only, which I think
Yeah.
is what I have right now. I think
Pretty
everyone
close.
I think so. Yeah, I believe so. But let us know what you think of this Spinal Tap. Have you seen the film? If so, drop some comments on the video. Let us know your thoughts. You can also, if you're listening, if that's how you consume your Oh Brother podcast in the car, at the gym, or whatever, wherever you take us with you, there's a in the show notes, there's a link that says send us a text and you can drop some quote unquote fan mail to us and send us a message that way as well. We'd love to hear from you, however, you get your message to us. That's some great, as I continue to say, engagement on YouTube, especially. And I had someone I told you that I believe is a subscriber now to the channel who all the way from Australia, Mike. And
Yeah.
this young guy was messaging about the K-pop episode we did on K-pop Demon Hunters. Just
Huge
did this,
fan.
yeah,
Huge fan.
incredible analysis of the film, and we were going back and forth talking about it, and I was just blown away. And I'm often blown away when we get someone to comment on the video. They, as I've said, they often educate us and provide all this other texture and context to something we think we've deeply researched, and yet there's still things you don't know. So that's one of the things I love about the Oh Brotherhood, as it were, is that
Right.
we get that kind of feedback from folks and they can enlighten us as well. But let us know what you think of this episode and of this film. And if you have the Criterion edition, let us know your thoughts on it as well. And what are some of your favorite extras from the
If you have the
package?
DVD, time to
Yeah.
upgrade. This is worth the upgrade.
Yeah, it's really, really worth it. So highly recommend this one. It's going to do it, Mike. Another Oh Brother Criterion review in the books. This is Spinal Tap. That's going to do it for another episode of the Oh Brother podcast. Been your host, Dan Smith. Alongside me, as always, my brother from the same mother, Mike Smith. And we will see you next time.
Bye, everyone.
You know what I want.
Do, 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 do.